Continuing her bus, the journey onward by Master Atlan, Chapter 65, One Last Chance. She looked around at all the new people that had joined the group. Her attention then turned to all the new arms and weapons being provided with for the change in method. Some of the members looked uncomfortable or unfamiliar with the heavy weaponry they found themselves holding, and some looked excited and ready for the opportunity. Danzo was certainly a powerful speaker, and he commanded the attention of everyone around him. But he didn't give off the same feelings of leadership as Hiruzen did. The black cat noticed the man in question hefting a bag over his shoulder. She jumped down from her seat and ran up to him. "Mr. Hiruzen," she asked, pulling off her mask to look up at the older man directly. She was hesitant to say anything to the old faunus, remembering how adamant he was against the change in leadership, but she swallowed that fear. "What are you doing?" Blake expected to see a look of anger or betrayal directed her way by the old man, but instead she saw a sad expression she could only describe as disappointment. The old monkey showed a smile, even she could tell was downtrodden as he packed his bag. "I'm leaving, Blake. I don't think there's anything left I can do to try and stop this from happening. I thought it was just this one branch being changed, but even Sienna has shifted her position. The White Fang is changing, and there's nothing left for me to do. You can stay." Hiruzen looked down at the desperate young girl. Her ears pricked on her head as she looked up at him. "Please stay. We still need your help and guidance, even if we're changing methods. Please don't go." Hiruzen looked down at her sadly, mustering a smile as he knelt down in front of her. "Blake, my child, I don't think this is the right path we have to take. I truly believe in my heart that this is wrong." Her breath hitched in horror before she saw him shake his head. But the fact that we have resorted to this course of action makes me think that my method weren't the right ones either. Maybe there's another path, a different course of action that we all need to take, and I just can't see it yet. But that doesn't mean you can't. "Mr. Hiruzen," the old man held her shoulder. "Blake, if you wish to stay here, then this is just an experience that you will have to have for yourself. Walk this path if you truly believe you must, but don't surrender yourself to it. And if you one day make a choice to leave it, don't let decision tie you down and make you hesitate. Learn from it, grow from it, become better than you were." Hiruzen showed a faint smile that did show some hope in his sad experience. You may choose a path that is different from either Danzo or mine, but and it just might be the choice that stops all this fighting and leads us towards a better future. I can't. A fear suddenly gripped Blake's heart as she shook her head. "I can't do that." "Yes, you can," he interrupted. It won't be soon, and it won't be fast, and it won't be easy. God knows it's never easy. But please, if you could one day make this world better, stride across it and change it for the better." Hiruzen smiled, a true and honest one, as he patted her head and stood back up. "Never falter from your fear. Never fail due to hatred. Keep your heart open and just be kind." She watched in silence as the old monkey flung his bag over his shoulder and made for the exit. And the last sight she remembered of her old mentor was his back disappearing from her sight. Hunting, her eyes narrowed on the screen in front of her as she typed away papers and reports and articles around her as she faced the computer. Something finally popped up on her screen with the name that grabbed her attention. Not the one she was looking for, but so close that it was important for just to be a coincidence. "I'm close, and I'll find you, I promise." Hunting, "Hi, my name is Sakura Haruno. I am a practicing medic of Skigan and Madame Tsunade's apprentice." The young pink-haired girl stated to the unfamiliar people she sat with. She shuffled in her seat. Told me before she left that I should introduce myself and get to know all of you. She said it would be beneficial for my sanity while I'm here." "Oh, that makes sense." Ruby nodded in agreement and waved. "I'm Ruby Rose. I'm the leader of our team. Team Ruby. Your name is the same as the team's. That must get very confusing. Only most of the time. A time when we're in trouble or Professor Goodwitch is calling us out and I stand up in panic." Ruby answered, pausing a moment after finishing her explanation before sitting back down and hanging her head. "It kind of sucks sometimes." There. Yang patted her baby sister's head before smirking at the new girl. I'm Yang Xiaolong, a big sister to the little leader by my side, and probably the only person you can talk to on the team, considering I'm not a wallflower that falls into itself the minute anyone tries to talk to them. You also have the distinguished title of most delusional on the team, which is quite an achievement considering Ruby is here too. Why, sir? The hairs ignored Ruby's diddy cry, and Yang's pulled down eye as she turned to the Skigan girl. I'm Waishni. It is a pleasure to meet you. Sakura, may I ask you a question? I wasn't able to see, off the other day, and I wanted to ask her how she was. Did she seem fine when she left? A little tired, but nothing to worry about. I told her to eat a meal and drink up on the flight home before she got as much rest as possible. She actually wanted me to pass on a message to you and that Sasuke boy. She didn't have the chance to say herself. The medical student focused. She said, "Thank you for letting me help." She said you don't understand. Yes, that's good. She nodded. I'm glad she's okay. Does this have to do with that thing she was bugging Sasuke the other day? Is that why you looked like you were going to cry when you came back? Ruby! Right, sorry, never mind. The hooded girl sat back, down with a very nervous laugh as Yang just eyed her teammate suspiciously. So, have you introduced yourself? Hey! Blake called over to her team as she ran into the cafeteria with an assortment of papers in her arms as she dropped down and let the newspapers and reports spread over the table as she looked between her friends. Okay, so I know this looks like a lot, but it's actually really simple. I've been trying to look for someone I knew back when I was younger that might be able to help us. He was a leader and a veteran member of the White Fang before its leadership changed. His name is Hiruzen Sarutobi, and after a little digging, I think I found him. Why are you all staring at me like that? Why side? Sakura, this rude antisocial girl who sat down beside you and yet hasn't introduced herself yet is the last member of our team, Blake Belladonna. Blake, this is Sakura Haruno, a medical student accompanying the doctor from Seiken during her stay here. Oh, Blake suddenly became far more aware and sheepish as she realized she was spilling part of their secret plans to a stranger. Her mouth clumped shut as she nodded. Nice to meet you. Did you say Hiruzen Sarutobi? Her eyes widened as she turned to Sakura in surprise. Yes, do you know him? Oh, not personally, but I've heard the name multiple times from Madame Tsunade over the years. She clarified. He was a mentor for Madame Tsunade and her friends many years ago when they were part of the White Fang. I hear her and Mr. Jirai talk about it sometimes. The bean girl's interest rose at the surprising tidbit of the information. She was part of the White Fang. Oh yes, many years ago when she and Mr. Jirai were still kids. Although I guess in her case she was in it because it was kind of a legacy deal. Whoa, wait, hold on. Ruby threw her hands up and reeled back in shock. I can't believe that. I know. The man and woman that came with Mr. Naruto's father might just be able to help us find Mr. Hiruzen. No, not that. Ruby shook her head. The lady who's a doctor is as old as that guy training Naruto. Sakura nodded. That's right. Yang looked just as bewildered. Blonde lady, thin in the middle of her forehead. Looks like her back should have already snapped in half a long time ago. She's nearly 60 years old. She nodded again. Yes, Madame Tsunade looks remarkably youthful for her age. Sakura looked around before leaning in and motioning for the others to do the same. Only Ruby and Yang complied. I've never been able to figure it out, but I theorize that it's because of the small sheen of Mikishi. Sakura! A cold chill ran up the medical student's back as she shot out of her seat with a frightened squeak. She slowly turned around to look up at the heated stare of her mentor bearing down on her. Jiraiya stood by the angry blonde's side and stifled his laugh before Sakura nodded. Hello, ma'am. I was just introducing myself to some of the students here. We were just talking about some fun things and places to visit while we're here. Her shoulder dipped down as Tsunade's hand slammed down on it and squeezed tightly, shutting her up immediately. Well, I'm glad to see you're socializing, but I just realized that we haven't done enough studying since you came here. As your teacher, I feel like I failed you. As such, we will be doing a crash course on the anatomy of the body's central nervous system, and how to mend and heal fractures to the bone. And I won't permit any wrong answers. I'd rather not. I insist. Tsunade led the young teen away as Sakura hung her head and silently sobbed. The girls watched their new associate get dragged away before Jiraiya chuckled. That girl should have known better than to blab about Tsunade's beauty secrets. She'll be dead before the night begins. The toad solemnly shook his head before he plopped down at the table with a merry smile. So, I couldn't help but overhear something about a particularly nosy old monkey you girls were talking about. Blake eyed the old man carefully before nodding. So, you do know Mr. Hiruzen? Grumpy, a tail coming out of his butt that might have been the end of a huge stick, always sticking his nose in someone else's business and guilt-tripping you into stopping. Jiraiya shrugged. Team Ruby looked at their fondest teammate as she frowned. I think the words you were looking for were focused and empathetic to those he cared about. He gave a wholehearted laugh. Yep, definitely the same old guy. So you know about the same man from the White Fang because he taught you when you were younger? Weiss looked skeptical. That's terribly convenient. convenient. On the contrary, annoying little girl. It makes a ton of sense. Hey, Joy ignored her explanation. Branch out far enough and make enough connections, and you realize you might just have a friend everywhere in the world. Old Saratobi spent most of his life traveling around and trying to better human and faunus relations, so he met a ton of people along the way. I tried expanding my net too, and now I've got people on every continent that I could call to help bail me out of a bad situation. The girl sweated. I don't think that should be the end goal for making connections with so many people. I beg to differ. It's useful knowing so many people, right, Miss Belladonna? Blake flinched at the emphasis the toad put on her last name. As she frowned at him, the old man laughed before pointing at the paper she littered the table with. So what's your interest in Saratobi? She rarely looked the smarmy old councilman over before turning to her teammates. Haruzen Saratobi was the leader of the White Fang, spending time as the high leader of the White Fang decades ago, before handing the reins over to someone else. After that, he acted as the leader of the Veiled branch of the organization where I met and followed him. He was a very kind and peaceful man, employing non-violent protests to try and help us spread its message. He stayed that way until Danzo came and took control of the branch. He left because he didn't want to be a part of what they were doing, and the black-clad girl paused and hesitated to continue as she remembered the scene in her head, even more painful now, and as in hindsight, considering the choice she made to leave after he did. Blake was jostled out of her thoughts when she felt her partner's hand reach out to grab hers, while the rest of her team tried to show her their support. Jiraiya lazily thumbed through the papers in front of him. So did you actually find him? Because I haven't seen that old gotcher in at least a decade. Blake shook her head. I couldn't find him, but I did find someone else, someone that must know a way to contact him. Ruby took the article her teammates offered and squinted at the name circled in bright red highlight. Asuma Saratobi, his son. I heard that name multiple times from him while we were together. If there's someone who might know how to contact Mr. Haruzen, then I think it will be him. Did they seem close from what this Haruzen told you? He hasn't spoken with his son for a few years. Even back then, she saw the uncertain look on their faces, but that doesn't mean they don't have some way to talk. I don't know, Blake. This plan sounds pretty flimsy at best. I know. She sharply nodded. Her head. But it's all a half. And if Mr. Haruzen can come back and help the faunus, I'm sure he could make a difference. He's a powerful influence in the community. If he could change some minds with his words, then I think we could take some of the power the White Fang holds. The black-haired beauty sounded desperate as she took the article back from her leader. I just need to go to this town and find Asuma. I think there's something else you're forgetting to take into account. They all looked at the Schnee Harris as she spoke. We're grounded, remember? We're not allowed to leave Beacon. Oh my god, Weiss. We've been in trouble enough in this semester alone. I am not going to let any of you risk our time here anymore doing ridiculous stunts when Professor Ospin, Professor Goodwitch, and even General Ironwood have their eyes on us. She resolutely crossed her arms. If you want to leave Beacon, you're going to need a responsible guardian to guide you. The table was completely silent before the girls unamusingly turned to look at the smug huntsman sitting with them. No, I said, I refuse to leave any of you consider this man to be responsible in any way. I don't think we do, but if he's offering a ride, I think we should take it. Yang smiled and turned to her partner. And if you're going, I'm coming with you. This is an important task. You're fulfilling for the sake of bringing some peace and understanding to all the hardships and troubles going on right now. It's my duty as your partner and your friend to stand by your side and make sure if you want to get off the campus that badly, you can come. Oh, thank you so much. I was making that all the top of my head. Ruby jumped. Can I come too? Blake nodded and got ready to yip with joy. Team Ruby field trip. Weiss, you are so immature. Weiss flipped her ponytail off her shoulder. But I suppose you will need someone responsible to watch for all of you. Gerard scoffed. Oh, this will be entertaining. Hunting. We'll be touching down at the settlement in just a few minutes. I'll be staying here for the day. So if you lot are preparing to stay any longer, then you'll need to contact another bullhead to pick you up. After being fortunate enough to convince a local pilot to escort them out, and Jiraiya showing his credentials, they were able to take a bullhead out of Bell and down the coast of the country. Of course, so when they took the ship out, they were assaulted with a rapid series of questions from the friends about where they were going and when they were and when they would be back, and a very angry glower from Glinda as they tried to escape from Beacon as quickly as possible. In the end, the girls realized that when they got back, there would be a lot to answer for, but decided to enjoy their brief silent stint out of Beacon as much as possible. Oh, the fresh air of that school is so much better than I remember, Yang yelled as her hair billowed wildly around her head. I feel alive. Yang, close the hatch before you fall out. The brawler pursed her lips in an annoyed pout before shutting the hatch properly and plopping back down in her seat. Yang resorted to looking out the window and watching the landscape zip below them as they flew past. Her teammates occupied her time in other ways. Blake reading from her book as Weiss checked things on her scroll. Jirai sat on a seat closer to the side of the ship and away from the Beacon students, except for one that sat closer and shuffled in her seat anxiously while sparing him some looks. Jiraiya closed the notebook he was writing in and looked down at the hooded girl. Can I help you? Oh, sorry, Ruby muttered. I was, just wondering about some stuff. Naruto told me you raised his dad and taught him everything he knows about fighting. Is that true? Jiraiya groaned and slumped in his chair. Now that was an ordeal. When I first started sparring with that kid, the way he held a knife was just embarrassing. He could barely do any footwork, and he telegraphed every swing he threw at me. I feel bad about smacking him around so much, if I didn't also find it really funny. But he's so skilled and such a great huntsman now. There's no one in our class that can lay a finger on him. Ruby gawked him. You must be an awesome hunter too. Jiraiya shrugged and lounged back proudly. I don't like to toot my own horn, but yes. The other girls rolled their eyes as Ruby continued to beam with excitement. Oh, that is so cool. Oh, what's your weapon? I bet it's super awesome and can wreck a whole bunch of Grimm in one blow. I don't have a weapon. They could have sworn they heard the sound of something young and hopeful shatter to a million pieces through the cabin. As Ruby's hopes seemed to come to a sudden stop, Jiraiya pulled up his sleeve and got them back into motion. As she looked at the prosthetic he was sporting. This usually does me pretty well when I'm out and fighting in the field. With this baby one good punch and a healthy dose of semblance, all the people picking a fight with me usually come to regret it. Oh, retro. She examined the older model of robotic prosthetic, her eyes twinkling at the sturdier metals and machinery used to replicate the missing limb. She was nearly bouncing out of her seat. Oh, I bet it takes some really serious maintenance to keep it up, huh? Does it get heavy on your arm? Or how did you get it anyway, Ruby? She flinched and looked back to see her team and giving her critical glares at her less than tactical question. I'm sorry, but when she starts, she doesn't know when to stop. Nah, it's fine. Joe waved their concern off before stretching out his robotic arm. See, I was on a mission a long time ago to retrieve a group of kids from a burning orphanage inside Grimm territory. It was bleak, and it didn't look like there was any way we were going to make it out alive, but I pushed on and led those little snot-nosed brats through the worst hell possible unscathed. Unfortunately, before we reached our destination, we realized we were out of supplies. We were going hungry, and someone had to make the hard sacrifice. Really? Did you? That's right. Jiraiya nodded somberly. The airship came and took us all away just in time, but when I returned, the Tsunade said I had a slight rash on my arm and decided to amputate the whole damn thing before I even got a word in. She always overreacted in the worst possible ways. Blake, Weiss, and Yang blinked in confusion as Ruby just remained shocked. That's not possibly true. Of course not. I'd like to keep it secret. It gives it an air of mystery. Maybe I'll tell you kids the real story when you're all grown up. Jiraiya rustled Ruby's hair and an annoyed whine from the young huntress before he flipped his notebook open. Now, give me some space so I can focus on my writing. Writing, Ruby blinked. You're writing something? Jiraiya smirked. Yes, I am. I've actually had quite a few books published in my name. Honestly, being a writer is more to my calling, while being a huntsman helps with the bills, and I take every chance I can to try and get a little writing in. He held it up for the young leader to read. See, Ruby's eyes roamed over the pages. She read intently. Her eyes slowly started to widen. Her face started to match her hood. Hey! She was pulled back into her sister's chest as Yang glared. What the hell are you showing her? You let her keep your smut away from my baby sister's eyes. you trust her to fight off the hordes of Grimm, but this is too mature. Team Ruby stared at the man judgingly as he laughed at their reactions and wiped a tear of joy from his eye at their experience. He went back to writing with a happy experience on his face, completely oblivious or not even acknowledging the glares answers he was getting from the group he was traveling with. He continued to write before speaking. So, Bo girl, what's the plan for when we get there? Asked the old man's son for directions, and then what? Because he might be a bit older to be taking down the entirety of the White Fang by himself. I won't be asking him to fight, but he has decades of experience in leading people in crisis and establishing peaceful talks with hostile parties. Big answered. I think he can offer guidance and be a helping hand to those in need. He can also advise the police or hunters on how to best go about handling matters with the White Fang. Jiraiya shook his head. You think the people that abandoned his cause and took up arms so quickly are going to listen to him again? People can change. Not everyone in the organization will want to stay with it, considering how it has escalated. This may just be waiting for the chance to leave to present itself. And Mr. Hiruzen's intervention may just be that chance. And even if he can't do anything to convince the members of the current White Fang, he can still give the authorities insight about the current leadership. He knew about Danzo Shiruma personally, and any information he could provide for us about him. If he wanted to go back and help the people that betrayed him, he would have done it already. Blake flinched from the unwavering tone in Jiraiya's voice. Plus, even if we found him and convinced him to do this, what makes you think they're worth it? All the horrible things they've done to people, all the atrocities they've committed for their goal. The captain went silent as Blake tried and failed to find her rebuttal. The bull-wearing fondness seemed to linger on his words before someone else spoke up. Like she said, people can change. She looked towards Weiss as the hairs crossed her arms and looked at Jiraiya through the corner of her eye. They can realize the errors of their ways and try to fix them. It's close-minded to so quickly write them off like that without seeing that they can still be helpful. Oh, no argument here, princess. People can people change like the seasons, but the shit they did usually tends to linger with them. Jiraiya said as he casually wrote away in his journal. His words seemed to make them pause before he continued. Take Minato and Naruto, for example. Both of them are acting like a good father and son should, but they both can't forget what happened between them, which is good. They both got the reasons to feel guilty, and they know it's so. They don't want it to happen again. See, some people try to focus on the now and leave their guilt for later. Some try to make up for all the mistakes by doing everything and anything they can. Blake lowered her eyes, and some. Well, they just try to forget it all and move along. All the bad things they've done and been a part of are the farthest things away in their minds. Think we'll be able to touch the hearts and minds of those White Fang, and some of them won't try to avoid what they've done. The idea hung in the air as the older husband finally went quiet and focused back on his writing. Ruby shifted uncomfortably in her seat as Weiss simply huffed with an irritated look on her face. Yang held Blake's shoulder as the black-haired girl silently thanked her partner for her support. She knew somewhere deep in her heart that Jiraiya's doubt was well established. There were people that hid away from their guilt, and if the White Fang ever finally came to an end, then there would be members who try and run away from what they had done. Even she was playing on the guilt she felt and aiming to make up for her past mistakes, but fixing them as best she could, connecting away with her team and friends, working towards a peaceful future as a huntress. Even this search for Hiruzen, if she couldn't help them with the White Fang or Danzo or anything, she still wanted to face him, to apologize, and say she was wrong for what she did. Even if she expected him to not forgive her, she looked out the window and spotted the village as the ship started to descend. Hunting. The settlement they had touched down in was a very small location, nearly invisible on the map. A village southeast of one of the largest settlements along the coast of Vale. It rested just on the cusp of the natural mountain range that protected much of Vale's population from the dangerous grim that prowled the country's landmass. A few, if any, settlements and villages resides outside of the protection of the mountains, and the biggest ones were very quick to fall. There were still grim attacks and problems to be had on this side of the mountain range, but none of them suffered the same tragedies as places like Mount Glen. Team Ruby and Jiraiya made their way through the town and spotted a few different buildings and establishments. Some of them were general stores, others house communication centers to receive and make calls. Ruby's interest immediately went to a weapon shop, but it dwindled when she realized that the weapons inside weren't very advanced and mostly for use by any hunters or soldiers stationed in the area. All in all, it was was a very quaint little village that seemed to be home for people looking for lives outside of the larger establishments. Ruby and Yang were reminded of their home back in Patch. This place is rather small, Weiss noted. If we're just looking for one person, then I'm sure we could ask around. Blake pulled out her paper. I found this in an article about places to visit outside of Bill. It says Asuma Saratobi owns a small restaurant out here that he runs with his wife. It's a local place and should be well known, so it shouldn't be difficult to find him. Yang grinned. Oh, cool. So we ask around for this Asuma guy, and when we find him, we see if he can give us some directions to Hiruzen, and maybe we'll get a little something to eat for celebration. And she smiled at her friends before eyeing their guardian warily. And so, I don't want to assume anything, but I should just ask, you aren't going to be spending all your time drinking if we end up at a bar, are you? Because you're reminding me a lot of someone I knew, and if we wind up near bottles, that's usually the end of this involvement. All right, I guess in this case, I wouldn't be so bad. Ruby whispered quietly to herself. Weiss elbowed her in the side and made her later hiss and rub her. I mean, we totally need your help the whole time. Well, I do enjoy a bottle every now and then, but I know better than to indulge when out on work. Jorah eased the worries. The Toad noticed their looks before grinning mischievously. Plus, I think I need to actively be watching over you kids to make sure you don't cause too much fuss. I know how inclined you are to do that. Weiss coughed. We have no idea what you're talking about. I got Naruto to slip a few details out. Reading a White Fang assembly and taking out one of Atlas's little toys definitely gave me a good laugh. Jiraiya laughed and left the girls to grumble and facepalm to themselves. He walked up to an elderly lady and greeted her with a pleasant smile. Excuse me, young lady. May I have a moment of your time? Oh my, I'm sorry, sir, but you might be seeing me wrong. I'm not a young lady anymore. Nonsense. A woman is always in the youth of her life. Jiraiya smiled at the laugh he got from her before inquiring about their target. He wished her a pleasant day and came back to the unamused crossed glares of the girls. When you're as charming as me, there's no need to fret. Oh, charm! Is that what we're calling it now? Are you gonna complain when I found our guy? Jiraiya said. He's this way. Come on, we aren't gonna get anything done just standing around. The girls watched the older man lead the way before Ruby scratched her cheek meekly. She looked at her team. So, am I the only one surprised Mr. Minato turned out so normal with this guy as his guardian? Perhaps it skipped a generation. Yeah, definitely seems more in line with Naruto's weirdness. He would be so mad if he heard us talking about him like this. Team Ruby decided it best to keep their observation to themselves and follow the old toad through the village. After a few minutes of searching, they came upon a small restaurant Blake immediately recognized as their target. They walked in and she looked around. So which one is Asuma Saratobi? That one, Jorah immediately said as they looked at him in confusion. I spotted the family resemblance. Their eyes immediately traveled to a large man standing behind the counter and speaking to a few of his customers. The man had a bushy beard coming around his jawline and joining his sideburns. He had a strong jaw and a toothpick sticking out from his mouth. On his back, they spotted a striped lemur tail peeking out as it carefully picked up a rag and helped him wash out a mug. The man wore a small smile as he talked with his customers before spotting them. Hey there, how can I help? How can I? Well, damn. He paused and let out a disbelieving laugh as he looked the older man over. There's a face I never thought I'd see again. You've grown, kid. Whatever happened to that rebellious little brat that ignored his daddy's orders and warnings? Jorah and Asuma both chuckled as the white-haired man took a seat and looked the bearded man over. The last time I saw you were only up to my chest, whining that you wanted to get out and see the world. You seem very determined to only remember my childish years. Asuma said with a chuckle as he tossed his toothpick. How in the world did you end up at my place in Olive Remington? Just by chance, while being the upstanding chaperone I am. Jorah pointed to the group of students behind him. These little ladies want to take a trip out into the country, and I was gracious enough to come along. Of course, they're Beacon students and can handle themselves in a fight, but they're also teenagers, so letting them go out without supervision is like singing their death warrants. Team Ruby silently fumed as Yang's eyebrow twitched him. I'm grateful that he helped us leave Beacon, but he's making it really hard not to punch him square in the mouth. Come on, you kids, don't just stand around and take a seat. The girls grumbled, but took up Jiraiya's offer and pulled up seats at the counter. Asuma chuckled as his tail released its rag and he placed the mug behind him. So, you girls are students from Beacon, huh? It's an honor to have our future huntresses come to visit my little place. Can I get you anything? Maybe if you're serving, can I get a cheeseburger and a milkshake, please? A white sashimi, a coffee, please, preferably a vacuum blend if you have one. Blake, herbal tea, yang xiaolong, biggest plate of fries you can make, and keep them coming. Oh, and some water. Coming right up. Asuma wrote down their orders and tore the slip out before hooking it up and sending it back into the kitchen. The fawness went over to the counter and put the kettle and coffee maker on before coming back to their side. How about your old man? Beer. The girls eyed him suspiciously. Just one. Apparently these kids are super judgmental and I don't want them sending me dirty glares all day. Coming right up. Asuma returned with their drinks and served them up as quickly as they came. When he saw them look happy with their orders, he leaned against the back counter. So what are the chances this was just a happy coincidence and you're just making a visit before you're on your way? Zero. Jiraiya shook his head. We've got someone here looking to ask you a question. All eyes turned to Blake as she finished taking her sip of tea. She flinched and put it down before looking up at the lemur fawness. She stilled her nerves. I was wondering if you knew where Hiruzen Sarutobi currently is, or if there is a method to contact him. Asuma's expression changed from one of laid-back ease to surprise, before settling on caution as he looked directly at the black-haired girl. And why would you be looking for him? We need his assistance in something very urgent, and we don't know how to reach him. And how do you know him? Did Jiraiya tell you about him? Blake shook her head. I knew Mr. Hiruzen from a few years back. He was like my mentor before he left, and I haven't seen him since. I was hoping I could speak with him. Left where exactly? Blake paused under his scrutinizing gaze. Her hesitation seemed to answer his question. And what exactly were you hoping to speak with him about him? She paused for a moment before settling herself. I wanted his help in finding out any ways we can use to stop the White Fang. It's too late for that now. I know what they've done, and I know what they've done should be considered unforgivable. But I think Mr. Hiruzen would spare them the chance if they took an offer to step down. You're right. The old man is probably daft enough to forgive and forget. Asuma sighed and scratched his head before looking up. But I'm not, and I don't want to be involved with anything about the White Fang. Please, I said no. Asuma answered resolutely as he passed their food out over the counter. And that's final. How? Blake slammed her fist down, shaking their drinks and plates and getting the attention of the few other patrons with them. The black-haired girl was brimming with anger. How can you so resolutely decide something like that? Don't you understand what's at stake? I understand perfectly, Asuma said as he pulled out another toothpick and started to chew on its end. I also understand what the White Fang have done and did to my father, so I've decided to wash my hands of them. They won't just disappear because you decided not to pay attention to them. All the things they could be doing and what could be done, and you'll just turn around and shrug. Damn straight, their salvation, their damnation. They could turn over a new leaf tomorrow and bring about a new age of world peace, and I wouldn't care. I don't give a damn about what happened to them anymore. What if they did something to affect this place, your home, and he could have stopped them? That would be on you. On me? Asuma scoffed and matched the cat fawness's glare with one of his own. So tell me, little lady, how exactly does this so-called apprentice end up so cut off from her mentor that she doesn't even know where to find him, huh? No, I suggest you, Asuma. The argument paused, and the tension hung still in the air as the curious voice came from behind the man's back. He and Blake kept eye contact for a moment before he took a deep breath and turned around. The beacon group followed and looked over to see a lovely black-haired woman standing in the doorway leading from the kitchen upstairs to the domicile above the restaurant. She had fair, pale skin and piercing red eyes, and nestled into her chest was a toddler with matching features to the woman and a pair of round little ears in her unkept black hair. She stepped into the restaurant. Is everything okay? Yeah. Asuma scratched his head. Everything's fine. I heard you raise your voice. Her eyes shot down to his mouth, and she sighed as she pulled out his toothpick. And you're stressed. Yeah, I was just disputing the bill with some customers. She looked their way and seemed to think it over before looking back at her husband. The lovely woman showed a small smile and rolled her hand through her daughter's hair. I'm going to take Mirai out for a walk and pick up a few things. The new shipment of supplies is coming today, right? I'll make sure to stop by and place place our resupplies order for them. You don't have to do that. It'll be on my way. She laughed at his expression. Anything else you need me to get while I'm out? No, but just stay safe, okay? He said with a faint smile before his hand rested on his daughter's head. Asuma gently played with her hair, causing the child to close her eyes and scrunch her face. Keep mom safe, kiddo. The woman and her child stepped out from behind the counter and headed out of the restaurant. The heaviness that stiffened the atmosphere was gone, but the tension in their form was still evident. Asuma's smile faded with his family now out of earshot as he turned back to the group from Beacon. He scratched his beard and turned around. Enjoy your meal, pay the bill when you're done, and that's the end of it. The lemur faunus stepped back into the kitchen and left them to their meal. Blake slowly fell back into her seat and stared down into her cup. No words were spoken between the students and the guardian, but a sinking feeling that their purpose for coming here had clearly walked away. Ruby spoke up and waved her empty glass. I think I can ask for a refill on my milkshake. Hunting. Once they had finished their drinks and meals, the Beacon group had left their payment and stepped outside. They wandered through the village for a while before finally sitting down and mulling over their options. Jiraiya pulled out his scroll. The pilot said he'd stay docked here for the day, so when the sun starts to set, we'll need a new plan to get back. So what are our choices here, girls? Give us a moment to consider where we will tell you when we're done. Weiss stated firmly to the Toad Faunus. Jiraiya shrugged and stepped aside, leaving Team Ruby to consider. So, what will we be doing now? We could always stick around for another day and try again tomorrow, Yang said, seated next to her pensive partner on the bench. The blonde showed a nervous smile. Although I don't exactly like our chances considering how heated that argument ended. Ruby anxiously nodded. You really raised your voice in there. You never do that. I mean, the last time you did, you went missing for a weekend, and we found you fighting the White Fang on the docks. Weiss and Yang stared blankly at their leader, causing her to flush and lower her head. I mean, it's true. Blake sighed and rubbed her temples. I shouldn't have gotten so riled up back there. It was just so frustrating to come all this way and find him only to be turned away, and to find him only to be turned away when we ask for his help. The black-haired girl shook her head in disappointment. I actually suggested that if this village was attacked, it would be his fault, and he had a wife and daughter just upstairs. I was so stupid. Well, you can be that, and he can still be a stubborn jerk. Yang offered in an attempt to raise her partner's mood. Blake turned to her with a petulant glare as the brawler chuckled. I mean that you might not have handled that the best way, but he should have seen how important this whole thing was. I mean, this is the entire White Fang. It's kind of a big deal. Ruby nodded. That's right. It's a really big deal, and I wanted him to help too. But I think I kind of understand why he didn't tell us. Blake and Yang looked up at the younger member as she meekly rubbed her arm. I mean, think about it. If someone told us they needed dad or mom's help to stop something as big and scary as this, well, I think I'd hesitate too. I mean, I bet I'd do anything I could in the end if I could help. But I know what you mean, Ruby. Blake said in a low voice. I was irritated, but I can see why he chose not to tell me. He has more than enough reasons not to. We shouldn't be wasting our time sulking. Weiss spoke up. We need to decide now if we are going to continue this pursuit or not. Blake, her fondest teammate, looked up at her as the Harris showed a sympathetic gaze. This Hiruzen we are trying to locate, can he really affect the White Fang as greatly as you suggested? The answer hung between the young hunters before the black-clad fighter spoke. I remember hearing stories from Adam about Danzo and Mr. Hiruzen when they were younger, how they had met when they were our age, or even younger than us, and had formed a mutual wish to help faunus around the world. They worked together and fought together and trusted each other like brothers. But as time went on, Mr. Hiruzen decided that he would resolve the tension with others by peaceful means, while Danzo decided on a different way: sabotage, manipulation, whatever method or means he could use to further his agenda and reach his goal and reach his goals with something he'd wholeheartedly accepted. And now that man is in a position of power in the White Fang, leading who knows how many desperate faunus and even people like Naruto's mom around to fulfill his wish. Mr. Hiruzen might be the only person left who can comprehend and counter his way of thinking, and I think that would be exactly what we need. Blake finished, her eyes lowering down under her clasped hand. And if I can meet him again... Oh, hello there. The girls turned in surprise and looked up to see the black-haired woman and her child from earlier standing a few feet away. Her toddler hugged her tightly with her stubby little arms, and in her other hand was a bag of groceries that she had just finished buying. She approached the group of teens with a beatific smile. I hope the meals were to your liking. We get outsiders very quite often, but I think it's more from convenience than the actual quality of our food. No, it was really good. That milkshake was so tasty. Ruby tried to sound polite, but her words came out so fast it was closer to babble. She looked embarrassed as the woman lightly chuckled at her nervous rambling. The young leader coughed before stepping up. My name is Ruby Rose. This is my team, Vaishni, Blake Radana, and my sister Yang Xiaolong. Kurenai Yuhi Sartobi, a pleasure to meet you. Kurenai graciously nodded her head. And this little one is Mirai. Can you say hello to these nice ladies? Close enough. Oh, she's so cute. Ruby preened at the adorable toddler's babblings as the older girl made their way over to see her. How old is she? She turned one a little while back. Mirai took her first steps just a few months back, but toppled over pretty quickly, which is actually a blessing considering a toddler is enough trouble without them being mobile as well. The mother watched the group of teens come around and look at her baby curiously as Mirai simply made sounds and noises of confusion at the tension she was getting. Kurenai attempted to lift her bag of groceries up while keeping her child stationary. If you'll excuse me, I have to go to station and place our supply order down for next month. Yang spotted what she was doing and eyed the mother carefully. She stepped up. Here, I'll carry that for you. Kurenai blinked and the rest of her team looked at her oddly. What? Am I going to leave a mother carrying her baby alone to carry all this stuff? It just ain't nice. Kurenai surrendered the strap and Yang easily hefted it over her shoulder. The young blonde smirked. So we were going shopping, right? Which way? Kurenai pointed in the supply store's direction and Yang started making her way. She was covered on both sides by red and white bodies. The usual exuberant girl frowned at the look she was getting. What? Just surprisingly mature of you to offer your help, Weiss said with crossed arms. I'm glad to see you offer your assistance, but what stirred this on? Oh, I think I know. Ruby giggled. Yang just can't help, but when I help a mom in need, right? Stop grinning, Ruby. You'll get bugs in your teeth. Blake watched the rest of her team make their way towards the store without knowing its actual location. They just seemed to be going in its general direction and rolling with it. Kurenai seemed to notice as well, if her amused smile was any indication as they walked along together. Those are quite an odd group of friends you have. Oh yes, I suppose so. So would you mind telling me what the argument earlier was about? The young huntress looked over to see Kurenai focus on her daughter's attention while casually asking that. I don't know a lot of topics you could talk about that could get a rise out of him and like that. He's usually quite calm and laid back. I asked him how I could contact Mr. Hiruzen. Kurenai's eyes closed as if that was all she needed. Of course, there isn't a lot there, but that is definitely one of them. Did you know Asuma's father? Yes, for a few years when I was younger, Blake answered. She thought back to all the time she followed the proud monkey, fondness, and listened to his words and teachings. She looked to the older woman. Did they have a falling out or an argument? Mr. Hiruzen was always so kind that I can't think of a reason he and his son would be estranged. Yes, he was very kind. I think that might have been part of the reason. Kurenai smiled sadly as she looked to Blake. When Asuma was younger, I think he was bitter about the fact his father spent so much time focusing only on the white fang. Their golden dream was something great, but the kids that age, they only see the fact that their parents aren't around enough for them. As he got older, he grew out of that mindset, but he realized his father was throwing himself so into his mission that it would only end up hurting him. Even when his wife died, he wasn't gone for long, going back to the White Fang and continuing its efforts without giving himself time to heal, and that left his children to mourn on their own. He lost his wife and kept trying to bring quality to Fawney's even then. Why had she never known about that? A few years back, when Asuma and I started getting comfortable, he offered his father a place with us to retire. He wanted his father to pass the torch and take some time to enjoy his later years. His father was touched by his kindness and offer, but he said no. He was going to see the White Fang mission to the end, even if it killed him. The red-eyed woman shook her head solemnly. I think he was so focused on helping everyone else, he neglected to help himself or his family. And Asuma didn't want to stick around and see how that left him. Blake's throat closed. Her memories once again falling back to the day she watched the old man walk away with a bag over his shoulder, as everything he had given and fought for was taken away from him. And after hearing what this woman had to say, she only now realized how damaging making him walk out that door really was. She swallowed and spoke as people started to make their way past them. I hurt Mr. Hiruzen when I was younger, and I wanted to make up for my mistake, but your husband waved me off and I got angry. I'm starting to see where he was coming from, but I still need to see him. I need to make it up to him? Kunai stopped him. I'm sorry, but if Asuma didn't want to tell you, please, is there anything you can say to convince him? I'm sorry. Hey, they stopped talking as they heard a commotion start to pick up around them. They noticed more of the civilians and villagers quickly making their way past them and approaching the supply store. Blake made her way over to her team, who stopped in confusion and watched as the rookies started to pick up from behind the gate. The door slowly started to open and they spotted trucks making their way in. Run! Get out of the way! Grim! The trucks barely made it through the open doors and were immediately followed by a pack of beowulfs that barreled through the open gap. The trucks swerved and toppled over violently. People screamed and called for hunters as they ran while the beast cried and roared. Oh damn! Yang sighed, dropping the bag of groceries and activating Emerald Silica as they slid across her forearms. It's never easy. Metronaster's revolver turned. We have to stop them before they get any further inside. One beowulf charged at a young couple and our WBY prepared to make their move, but before they could, a hand clamped down on the beast's snout and stopped its movement instantly. A confused growl passed its lips before a loud bang echoed echoed out through the pommel holding it down. The shockwave caused a ripple through the monster's body before it burst like a balloon. Jirai shook his hand around before looking over towards the shocked girls. Well, can't do this all myself, can I? The giant scythe landed on the ground. Come on, Team Ruby, let's go hunting. They charged through the crowd and rushed the beast before they could get any further. Wai slammed her sword into the ground and created a wall of ice to stop Grim from leaping on anyone. It slammed into the ice wall bodily before Weiss dropped down behind him and pierced it through the back of its skull. Ruby fired into the ground and jumped up from the recoil. She spun through the air, a red spiral with a rapid silver blade around it that sliced through Grim's head like butter. She landed in a crouch with her scythe pulled back before spinning on her knees, slicing the hind legs of the beasts and making them drop before following with another swing and slicing their faces. Yang dropped atop a beowulf and planted its face in the ground before releasing a kinetic blast point blank. She spun and kicked its dissipating body into the air before launching herself back with a blast. She slammed into the body of Grim and doubled it over before landing a spinning hook or punch across its face. She ducked and weaved around its flailing limbs and landed rapid blow after blow on its chest. The blonde knocked out its kneecap uppercutting into its chin, and then landed a blow to the chest that sent it flying into another group. Blake watched her partner charge another horde as she sped through the crowd towards a clump of her own. The fawness leapt into the air and drew her katana and cleaver. She landed between the three beowulfs and landed in a spinning motion, leaving slashes across their chest as she landed. The black blur snatched back up and cleaved leg and claw from her targets before they could even scream. Blake slashed one Grim's head off, stabbed another in the chest with her katana, and leapt off its body to fly over the last one and slice it in half. Blake landed on the ground and looked up to see the small horde of Grims starting to get thinned out. Ruby's RWY's efforts, as well as Jiraiya's assistance, were holding the beast back long enough for the local fighters to arrive and assist. It looked like no one had been fatally injured. At most, some injuries getting caught in the stampede or running away from the Grim. Her ears still on her head and her eyes shot over to see a beowulf slip through the crowd to run into the village. Blake's legs moved on instinct, sprinting after it as fast as her feet could take her. She was gaining, but the monster had already spotted its prey. Its predator. It prepared. It snarled. It lunged. The baby cried. Blake's eyes narrowed as a shadow appeared behind her and launched her over the lurching beast. Her weapon shifted into a sickle, and she felt the black ribbon slip into her hand until she guessed its distance. She swung down and planted the weapon's tip deep into the beast's skull, breaking through its bone armor. She yanked back and pulled the body through the air before snapping her weapon back. Blake landed and immediately turned around. Are you okay? Yes, I'm fine. Kurenai panted and cradled her crying child closely. We're fine, thank you. Blake looked back around and saw that the monsters were either being killed or forced back out of the village. Where with the craziness and fighting coming to a lull, the others were making their way back to reconvene. Yang looked guiltily as she held up a torn bag with few goods left. My bad. Hunting, are you okay? Asma came running out from behind the counter and nearly smothered his wife and doctor in worry. He inspected them closely, trying to spot any damage or injuries. Kurenai may have sustained before looking over his thoughts. Next, I heard what happened. Grim following the convoy into the village. Are you sure you weren't hurt? We're fine. She's fine, I suppose. I promise. Kurenai accepted his hug and sighed a breath of relief after the terror that had nearly choked her not moments ago. Kurenai pulled back from her husband and looked aside him. They gave a lot of people. They saved a lot of people and stopped the grim before they could get bad. Before they could get bad. The bearded faunus looked up at the group of teens and the toaded faunus that had followed his wife back to the restaurant. Blake slowly stepped forward, a look of apprehension on her face as she approached Osama. The tall man squeezed his wife's hand before stepping up. Thank you for protecting them. It's okay. It's my duty after all, Blake said, and I want to apologize for the way I lost my temper earlier and started that argument with you. That was childish of me. I'm no better. I let things get heated and I raised my voice very quickly. I'm sorry too. The conversation lulled and the two faunus looked at each other. A hopeful gleam in Blake's eyes. Osama sighed and shook his head. I can't express how grateful I am about what you did for Kurenai and my daughter, but I can't. I'm sorry about how I hurt your father, and you're probably right to be distrustful of someone that just comes to you asking to meet him, she admitted, but I did him wrong. I needed to make up for it. Among a laundry list of other things I'll probably never get around to fixing, but if I have to spend my life trying to make up for all of them, I want him to know that I'm sorry for what I did. Asma shamefully looked down. Kid, Asma. He paused as his wife's hand squeezed his arm. He looked back into Kurenai's red eyes before she whispered, She deserves to know. He looked between Blake, his wife, and Blake once again. As a glint of hope filled her amber eyes, the bearded lemur stood silent for several moments before finally pulling out his scroll. Blake's breath hilted as he opened it and placed it on the table. She reached out. You said earlier you wanted to help with the White Fang, to stop things from getting worse, to apologize. Asuma pressed the button. I told you it was too late now. Hello, Asuma. Old man, they blinked surprised as the recording played of a call between Osman and his father. Didn't think I'd ever get a call from you again. Hunting. Yes, I suppose it has been a long time since we talked. Harrison gave a hoarse old chuckle as he talked with his son for the first time in years. The old faunus leaned back in his bench and relaxed as he waited for his transport to arrive. How are things going with your lady friend? Good, I hope. Very well, actually. We were thinking about moving out into one of the neighboring settlements, a more peaceful spot to hunker down, a place so we could think about more about the future. Harrison's mouth. Oh, they make sure not to dilly-dally. That's one of those important decisions that make them mad the longer you wait to make it. What's this call on about anyway? I know you must be busy with other things. Not so much anymore, Harrison said. Tell me, Osama, is that offer to come and live with you both in my retirement still standing? I could just take you up on that right now. Bull, no way you take the offer. There ain't nothing in the world to pull you away from your work. Harrison stared ahead sadly and left his son in silence. Old man, what happened? You said you were considering moving out into a less populated and troublesome spot, right? You and that young lady? Harrison sat up. Do it. Be happy together and stay safe. Stay out of the major cities and settlements. I think things are going to take a turn soon, and it'll get harder the longer you wait. Seriously, what happened? You're talking weird right now. Why, Asama? He sharply cut off his son's line of questioning as a small smile came to his face. I'm sorry. I know how hollow it must sound to hear an apology so long after the fact, but I am sorry for not being there when I needed to be the most. When you were both growing up, when you were looking to go out into the world and see it for yourself. Even when Biwako passed, I have regrets about what I did and didn't do over the years, but I can't change them anymore. I think all I can do is say I'm sorry and hope you know that I mean it. Hold on, what is this about? What happened? I'm sorry, Asuma, but I think I have company. Goodbye. Wait! Asuma thumped the screen and the call went silent. A sad look filled his eyes as the mute button was activated, and the call continued. Even as their conversation ended, he was sure his son was calling out to answer him, and there was nothing more he'd like to do than answer. But shouldn't you be focusing on your new regime? I'm sure they must be confused by the fact that their new leader suddenly stepped out. I've Adam to take care of things while I'm away. I know that boy will show them how to prepare for our revolution. Hiruzen's eyes narrowed. I know about that poor girl you took under your wing. Can you truly take these children you see with potential and just use them like tools? For the sake of the future, I believe they'll understand. Hiruzen shamefully shook his head. I can't believe how much you've changed. This has always been who I am, Hiruzen. The one who has changed is you. That boy that once had such a fire and spirit burning in his chest for change and something new, now nothing more than an old man who looks so frail to even hold a weapon anymore. The weasel closed his eye. If you could show me there is even a little of that flame, the spirit of fire of our people and their suffering, then no. Hiruzen started sharply, scowling into the lone eye of his former friend. I will never raise my hand against another. Never. Again. The two old men stared each other down as the people around them simply walked by without paying them a moment's thought. Danzo closed his eye and came to terms with his plan. He slowly drew out his gun to show Hiruzen what he was carrying before jerking his head. Here, or somewhere where people won't get involved. Your choice. Hiruzen slowly stood up, pocketing his scroll as his call with Asuma continued on mute. The old Faunus duo made their way across the streets and past the buildings and into the alleys. Hiruzen and Danzo emerged into a rather empty lot besides a car waiting in the middle of it. The old monkey gasped as he felt the shot land against his back and forced him to the ground. His aura protected him, but it was weak and already folding from the gunshot. Hiruzen panted and looked up as Danzo aimed the barrel at his face. Danzo, Hiruzen hissed, when the day comes where your revolution changes the world and makes everything how you want it to be, what will happen when the next one rolls out? How will you react when it's you that must face revolutions? That's a silly question. Danzo slightly smiled as he cocked the gun. I'll win. Hunting. Muffled gunshots echoed from the scroll speaker and through the hand that slammed down on it. Red eyes peeked out from behind her golden hair as Yang glared at the lemur. You could have just told us. I don't think that would have been enough. She needed to know in no uncertain terms of what happened to him. Horror and shock showed across many of their faces, but none more than Blake's. The black-haired beauty staggered, letting out a strangled gasp as she covered her mouth. She turned and charged out the restaurant doors with her teammates calling out and chasing after her. In the end, the only ones left were Kunai, Asuma, and Jiraiya. The toad scratched and shook his head. Well, I guess that's one way this all could have ended. Did you know what happened to him? No. But after all this time with no contact, I just figured that's what happened to him. That's what happens to most. Jiraiya shrugged and chuckled. What a stupid old man not to even try to fight for his life at the end. The white-haired Faunish chuckled at the idea. Then his smile slowly lowered into a flat, blank stare. He rubbed a hand down his face and sighed heavily. God damn it, old man. Hunting. It felt cold and empty. She had bolted out of the building and ran past so many others without even realizing she had moved. When she did, she suddenly stopped. She stopped running and faltered on her feet. She tried to catch her breath, but couldn't when it felt so rough and strangled, so difficult to fill her lungs. She propelled herself up in a wall to catch her balance before following the wall behind the buildings. He was gone. Danzo had so callously and violently. Blake stumbled to the ground as her breathing finally caught. She rested on her knees. Her breathing caught so loudly in her ears it was deafening. He was dead. Dead because of the White Fang. Dead because of Danzo. Dead because of her. There was a part of her that always knew. She didn't want to believe it and didn't want to entertain the idea, but somewhere deep down she knew that this was a possibility. This was the result of the mistake she made. She let him walk out of that door and away from everything he had built and sacrificed into a society he had helped to try to form, only to surrender it to a madman and then allow that madman to This was... Blix's sobs broke her wall as tears spilled from her eyes. She hugged her arms and tried to quiet herself to little avail. The young Faunus was left to cry to herself at the memory and loss of the man that had given so much to her and whom she had taken everything from. Her team watched from the side, attempting to stay by her side, but hesitated when they realized there just wasn't anything they could do to help. Hunting, Naruto stepped up to the door when the knocking came to so late at night. He opened it and found Blake on the other side. He greeted her with a smile. Welcome back. How's the trip? Hope that creepy old man didn't bother you too bad. Here. Blake held out the book. I need to get this back to you. Oh, that's right. I forgot to lend this to you. Naruto snickered as he took the book. It usually doesn't take you this long to read a book. It was almost as slow as how I read it. He flipped through the book. So how was it? Where did you rank it on the best too? He paused when he found the bookmark near the end. Wait, did you finish this? No. Oh, why not? It's not like you to finish the book. He looked up and finally noticed just how red it was around her eyes. What happened out there? Something that made me realize I'm not doing enough. I don't have enough time to just be reading for my own enjoyment. I can't keep wasting time doing pointless stuff like this. Blake stepped away. Thank you for lending it to me when I asked, but I don't need it anymore. Blake, wait. She stepped away as her blonde friend called out to her. Her eyes narrowed with resolve as she stomped through the hallway with her destination in mind. If she couldn't rely on her own mentor to find a way to stop the White Fang, then it was just back to basics. Research tactics, patterns, movements, papers, everything she could find to catch them. She didn't have any reason left to put it off or waste her time. She would stop the White Fang. She would catch Danzo. Oh, he won't have died in vain. That was her solemn vow. Extra, a decaf part 1. The settlement out from the city is surrounded by a small wall. Not enough fighters, not enough supplies, not enough protection from the creatures that bumped in the night. Vel had sent some aid to this place in order to help it expand. With a large natural dust vein nearby that they would need to tap into with the destruction of a major rig, it was time to help it expand. Supplies had arrived to help with the building out, but the Grim were still a threat, so teams and hunters were sent out to assist in the effort. So that's our job. Help the builders lay the foundation, protect them while they build it. Slay any unflinching little Grim that pops its head our way. Look damn fine while we're doing it, and all the while also thinking of plans to make the ball the most kick-ass event of the year. Coco explained with a grin. Any questions? Her team stood silently in front of her after reminding them of the mission they already knew about. A hand meekly rose. Yes, little bun creature. Coco, that's not. Velvet sighed. I feel like one of the items you listed isn't really of that much importance. Really? Which one? The obvious one. She pouted at the end. All right, sorry. Good. We don't need to try and look damn fine. Her sunglasses glinted as she smirked. Don't need to try what comes naturally. This is going to be a long mission. End of chapter 65.